Conference of the Black Child. Father Passage. National Conference of the Black Child.
I was being influenced by social forces that they couldn't even touch, couldn't even understand.
You getting your information from what you watch on the news.
Yeah, that's
you
what
getting information what they're feeding you.
I was being influenced by social forces that they couldn't even touch, couldn't even understand.
You getting your information from what you watch on the news.
Yeah, that's
you
what
getting information what they're feeding you. And when you're in control of the media, you feed what you want to feed out there.
Moving from, if you like, the particularization of individual people, all of us searching for the same theme and moving along the same road in our different directions, now to our sessions of speakers. We've had the political reasons from Dr. Santi and the processes of media attack by Dr. Jeffries. This was followed by an excellent presentation by Bro Browder in terms of African symbols, attack, suppression, counterattack that we need to make in terms of the use of our own symbols. We now have Dr. Patricia Newton, who is going to look at the process of the attack and focus upon the most dangerous weapon in the world, the human mind, and in particular the African mind, and our need to utilize that knowledge of our minds, of our inner selves, for our well-being so that we exist, and for our future in order to reconquer what has been essentially the greatest contribution to humanity, i.e. the African mind. Dr. Newton is what I would class as a fantastic academic achiever. Looking through her list of credentials, it reminded me of looking at some of the late Sheikh Anta Diop's CV and Ali Mazrui. I had to photocopy it once as a kind of research assistant, and then I just flicked through, and there were 14 pages of book, man. So it just hit me. So it's in that kind of light I'm saying to you, we have another fantastic academic achiever here, Doctor of Medicine, MSc, Masters in Public Health, doctor, as well as many other things. But she's not an achiever just to collect the pieces of paper. What she wants to do is to use those tools and others to totally reclaim our inner selves, to free that most dangerous weapon, the African mind. The way Dr. Newton has done it is firstly to graduate as a major in pre-med and a minor in music and Spanish from the University of Arkansas. She then moved on to a degree in medicine from Washington, St. Louis, then to an MSc in molecular biology at Vanderbilt University, and as if she wasn't sure enough, she then went and did a master's in public health from Johns Hopkins. Having done all of that, she has become, or always was perhaps, a behavioral medicine specialist looking at psychology and its relationship to well-being, i.e. the relationship between the inner self and the outer person's wellness. To make one well is to strengthen the other. And she is also the president of Newton Toth Incorporated, specializing in international behavioral science management. She's also the World Melanin Conference sponsor and is a member of too numerous a series of professional associations in her field. But I certainly centered on the American Medical Association, and as well as that, a member of the Caribbean Psychiatric Association and others. In a sense, she's not content to see us purely in America, she's there with us on a worldwide level. On top of that, if you felt, well, you know, this was enough of an achievement, she's also a third Dan black belt in karate. Can you dig it? So if you want your ass cut, just try something. She's also, whoa. She's also an expert in chemical dependency and rehabilitation and has run an extremely successful program using a wide range of methods, as is her will, in terms of rational behavior therapy, cultural therapy, acupuncture, self-esteem, you name it. She's been there in order to put it together. She's participated in the National Institute of Drug Abuse consultation and is a co-host of quite a number of radio shows, but including that one, the Wellness Alert, and a monthly show called Stress Test. She's also made quite a number of presentations, not only on radio, but also on TV. She's involved in many seminars and consultations, again in a wide African frame. USA, Africa, South America, Europe, and America. Wherever we are, Dr. Newton is there with us. She's also got 2 new books in the pipeline. One on early sexual trauma in black males, psychological and political implications. The second book being Ancient African Spiritual Attitudes and Techniques, and again, in her humility, she calls it Old Remedies for New World Dilemmas. Dr. Newton has also organized and is a continual organizer of tours, and she coordinates study tours to Africa, Egypt, in terms of a May schedule, and in terms of a Shona visit that is for the month of August. She is also a member of traditional healers groups in Africa and is developing a number of healing strategies, one of which she will demonstrate to us at the end or towards the end of her presentation. And as I said, the list goes on. But the list which is even more fantastic is that Dr. Newton is also a priestess in a North African secret society, so we can't mention it, and also serious business, and is also a member of the Indep Wolof Priestess Society. Again, we have to give respect where respect is due, and I think, you know, the praise poem's enough. Let me give it to her.
Can you hear me? I'm very humbled and honored to be here. I want to thank Paul first for inviting me, and Tony for urging him to do that initially, Tony Broder. And I'm just been so amazed at the high level of organization, the efficiency with which this conference is being run, the dedication and the spirit of the volunteer workers. And I think before I go any further, you should give them a wonderful round of applause. And also, before I go any further, I'd like for you to give yourself a round of applause for being awake long enough for the last presentation. I want to thank my brother for that enormous introduction. I hope I'm able to handle and fulfill all that is going to be required of me after hearing all that crap. But God willing, I'll do my best. I'm very honored to be asked to participate on any discussion of black children. But more than that, with the illustrious panel and the illustrious people that have been invited, Dr. Malefi Asante, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Brother Tony Broder, I just can't imagine any more star-studded audience, a star-studded array of people being in one place at one time and have it not, the sun not shine. I would have thought that with all this great African energy, we could at least pulled off a sunrise, Rosalind. But I guess God doesn't always fit every place, in some places. Tony and I were talking yesterday about how the moss grows in 360 degrees around the trees. We thought moss only grew on the north side of the tree. It grows around the whole tree here. It's always cold. How you black people live here? I don't even understand it. I'm supposed to discuss the transformation of the African mind utilizing the knowledge. Now, everybody in America knows that whatever topic you give me, I only talk about one thing. And let me tell you what the title of my topic is going to be. Free your mind so your bad black ass will follow. Okay? Now that we're straight on what the true topic is, I'm always struck when I come to the UK about what a diverse group we Africans are. And it always reminds me when we come to conferences of this type to talk about children that we sometimes think of them in terms of doom and gloom. We hear a great deal about all the negative things that are happening to our children in the media. But we don't hear about your children who are not doing negative things. You are parenting who are doing a great job and whose children are demonstrating that. That never makes the media. Nobody ever discusses the positive issues. So I'm reminded when we talk about the media of one of my favorite African writers, Brother Arma, who wrote 2,000 Seasons. And I'd like to quote from him in setting the tone for my presentation. This season, the flow is so powerful toward the direction of death. It has been so long, even before Anawa spoke her prophecy of 1,000 seasons and another 1,000 seasons. 1,000 seasons of our people spent wasted, wandering amazed along alien roads. Another 1,000 is spent finding the path to the living way. The reign of the destroyer has been long. It will be longer. But what is this, our present despair, against the sharp abandonment of those our ancestors first snatched away to waste? What puniness is this in 1994, black people? Is this our present anxieties about somebody finding out that we may need to have overcome? What puniness is this against the howling agony of our murdered ancestor souls? Remember this, that amongst all that destruction, some still and will always remain among us, unforgetful of our origins, who dream secret dreams, who see secret visions, and yes, who hear secret voices of our purpose. Further, those children to be born, little do we know what changes their birth will come among. It's idle then for us to presume despair on their behalf. Foolish when we have no knowledge of how much closer to the way their birth will come, how much closer to the living way than even today our closest of closest hopes. Not all our souls are of a nature to answer the call of death, riding on a pale horse, however sweetened. But it's so easy this season, black people, for even us to forget that too. And in forgetting, I was traveling around through this city, saw Moss Side and Hume and Alexander Park, and I remembered that we have people in the UK who still do not believe they're African. There are people, perhaps some of you in this room, who do not believe that they come from Africa because they have forgotten, as Kwame says. It's so easy to forget. When you are bombarded with repeated insults, when you are bombarded with repeated negativities that make you denounce the womb from which you popped out of in terms of a race, of a nation, of people. Let me set the record straight biologically. All people, regardless of their phenotypic skin coloration, come from one black African woman who walked the face of this earth 150 to 200,000 years ago. That has been done as a matter of fact. You see, truth is whatever you believe it is, and fact is what it is regardless of what you believe. And the fact is, through the analysis of mitochondrial DNA, ain't nobody thing around here called white people. They just happen to have been a change off the original theme. And the original theme was blacker than 150 million midnights black. So let us not be confused. You know, it's one thing to speak in emotionalism, but it's another thing to talk about hardcore data. And we can't deny that fact. And so in the process of looking at that fact, the fact that other people, in their attempt to survive, who had to have certain physiological changes take place in their body in order to cope with the climate, and I tell you, I know those first Africans that came to Europe had a hell of a time with this cold weather, because I'm having a time with it now. And when they came, there were certain physiological changes that occurred that were required to be occurring for the Homo sapiens sapien to continue to exist. So let us not deal with the fact that because a minute percentage of the world's people who are devoid of skin-pigmented melanin are running the world because of their anxieties over going back to being what they used to be. That's a serious indictment of psychopathology. And you want to become like them. I rest my case, Lord Jesus. Please turn the lights on. Now, in looking at this, let's suppose that there was a hypothetical issue and racism was eliminated. Matter of fact, it was outlawed. Never such luck in the 20th century, but let's suppose that it occurred. And if it occurred, what would you do, you who no longer wish to be African? You who are African Caribbean, African Asian, African Britain, African UK, African other, African nothing. Belonging to the Conservative Party, belonging to the Labor Party, belonging to the Democratic Liberal Party. Hell, don't you know, fool, you weren't invited to the party. Straight yet? So now what would you do if they eliminated racism? You wouldn't know what to do. You'd be totally confused. Our African ancestors tell us what to do. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can never do you harm. So therefore, the problem that has been created is the enemy within is the problem. You see, I'm not worried about what the European does. I'm worried about what you do with the knowledge that you have, and so far it's been nothing. So what does the Bible tell us? The Bible gives us the answer in Proverbs. Envy not your oppressor, and choose none of his ways. Now, that's going to put a whole lot of people in trouble, especially all you others that don't know what you want. But in the process of transforming our minds and in the process of freeing them so the behind can tag on, we have to look at what the reality is. We now know that in a Eurocentric patriarchic world, women have no rights. The mothers of civilization are just still clamoring for their right to exist. And so U.S. News and World Report just this March said the war against women. Women are falling further behind in country after country, and their men like it that way. I see. Well, now wait a minute. This is an African woman talking. So we're not talking no superiority, inferiority garbage. Let's get that straight. We're talking about the need for the resurgence of a feminine consciousness, of the aspects of nature that are required to create balance and harmony. In this society, we have too much masculine energy gone awry. That's why y'all killing each other and doing all kind of crazy stuff. But if women, the women, the female energy that is in all of us, hopefully, not broken wrists, but the energy that is in all of us, if that is allowed to manifest itself, then we're talking about nurturing, we're talking about loving, we're talking about being kind and generous to each other. Now, if that is allowed to manifest itself and the sisters begin to allow their masculine energies to manifest themselves, meaning that they must begin to assume responsibility for what is happening to their children. Because you see, you can go, at least in America, in any predominantly white neighborhood, and if your black face shows up, somebody's going to come out and ask you what you're doing there. But in our neighborhoods, anything and anybody can walk in and do anything to our children, and we don't dare question them. That means that we have abdicated our moral, ethical, and spiritual, and yes, legal responsibilities. And you know how it is, not in white man's law, but in universal law. If God gives you something and you don't use it, you're supposed to lose it. What do you think is happening to your children? These images could not manifest themselves on your children if the problem with the adults had been resolved. The problem with the children is you, not them. You're blaming the victims. These children are an accurate reflection of your garbage, your two-sidedness in what you say. The behavior and what you say are entirely different. You teach them one thing, and then you do something else. And they go out to a larger society that does everything else. And you want to know, what happened? I bought them all them things, you know. What happened? What happened is that materiality in the absence of spirituality leads to disharmony. We call that homeostasis in medicine, the lack of it. So if we're talking about women, let's deal with it. The revolutionary consciousness of a people is measured by the political maturity of its women. If you have women who do not, as black mothers, identify themselves as African and black, your children are screwed from jump, all due respect. And so that if the womb is contaminated, what do you think the afterbirth will be? It will be contaminated. So I submit to you, and this is going to come across as gross, but you know I'm an American, we have no class. No, actually I'm an African, but in America we have no class. You know what y'all say about us, you know, rude and crude. So, but let me be rude and crude for the sake of completeness. All right, sisters, the responsibility is going on you. You want to stop drug addiction? You want to stop the effects of racism on your community? You want to stop all these negative things? Then I submit to you, for the sake of argument, and I know a whole lot of discussion, that we need to have a black woman's pussy revolution. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm a gross American. What are you talking about, woman? Close your legs, sister, and tell if you're going to be a queen, say only a king can enter this microphone. I submit to you that the stuff will be cleaned up in 60 days or less. Those that are still clear that they're men. And the rest of them, you let them go where they want to go. Y'all want to be with them? No way. But you can't do it, ladies. The same quality that makes you the most kindest and gentle and nurturing thing to the point that you will even suckle your enemy is the same thing that will allow you to open your legs even when the person ain't worthy to come. I mean coming in all levels. okay? So if they're not ready to come and they're not pure to come, what do you think you are creating when you do have a conception of a child? Oh, my God. Because in the ancient African tradition, the child is created here before it's created here. You all missed the boat. And now you got media that superimposes ideas of sexuality and all other kind of things on these children who already were confused from conception because you didn't want them when you got them. Oh, my God. This is not what we came to hear. We came to hear from a physician with all them qualifications, some excellent reality, where we could continue to reflex our anal sphincters and be rigid like we've been properly trained to do in UK. And so then what do? We then adopt and send them to these churches that are ordinated in some kind of foreign religion, because, you know, Christianity didn't start in Europe. Neither did Judaism. Neither did, you know, any of the major religions, but you got it the way you want it. And so what happens to them? Look at it. Everybody knows what the indictment is going on with sex in these children in the churches. And we in our churches turn our heads. Oh, you don't do that in the UK. It don't happen here. I see. Only in America. That we turn our heads and we are condemning these children to abuse. I don't care where it comes from. And you're going to tell me that doesn't have some psychological effect on them? They come here not wanted. They come here not out of love, but out of lust. They come here unprepared for. They are young gods and goddesses that come here like demons. And then you want to blame everything on the European. You had a psychology, you have a memory that's longer than they've been on the face of this earth. But you don't want to claim it because you ain't no African, I understand. So this is what your children are subjected to. They're subjected to all kinds of things: abuse, illiteracy, prostitution, unemployment. No, not in the UK. They are just not employed, period. There ain't no such thing as unemployment and underemployed. There's no employment. No employment for us in America either. Mental illness, cannon fodder, malnutrition, scientific experimentation, and incarceration. Your children are holding you in contempt, which to me, as a behaviorist, is an appropriate response to your garbage. The problem is they don't have any guidance in how to handle that appropriate response, because their rebellion of your garbage is healthy. Ooh, it's healthy to reject bullshit. It's healthy. Oh my God. And now what happens? Sex hormones are now for sale. It's not enough to then stimulate you with the media. Now we're going to make it available that you can ante up at a time when people are dying from just the very act of procreation. In Baltimore, for example, there is, Baltimore and D.C. are awfully close together because, you know, we're just the backdrop for the nation's capital. And so what has occurred is, if you've not read about it, is that there has been voluntarily private business paying for Norplan, which is the implant that goes under the skin, as a birth control mechanism, paying for it to be dispensed free in the public schools for children, with the permission of the black community. Okay? With the permission and with the ordination of the so-called black leaders. Why would they do that? Well, we're having too many babies out of wedlock. If you were teaching them properly and engaging in the things that should have been dealt with in terms of letting them know they were kings and queens and going on that revolution that I discussed earlier, you wouldn't have that problem. But you got that problem because you have refused to take a stand for your children, and now they are making you pay. They should. That's universal law. So now we have the issue of AIDS. Why is there no AIDS vaccine? There is no AIDS vaccine because predominantly the amount of people who are dying of AIDS at this juncture are brown and black. That's why. Oh. That can possibly be true, you know, because I know many white people who died of AIDS, you know, and everyone knows somebody who dies of AIDS, you know. I tell you what, look at the statistics. White male homosexuals are no longer dying of HIV. They were used in early experimentation almost as a control to look at what happens when I create a biological warfare instrument and I introduce it into a population of African people, and now I have a control of undesirable groups that I can compare the reaction. Just like the Tuskegee experiments. If any of you have never read a book, I want you to write this book down and I want you to get it and read it. It's called A Higher Form of Killing by Paxman and Weiss. And it talks about all the biological warfare experimentation that has occurred on human subjects in the UK as well without their permission. The UK has a history of notoriously experimenting on the Caribbean islands for experimentation. The United States does it to its southern blacks. And so you see, you are becoming dispensable. We're going to get to that. You think your melanin is going to protect you forever, but I'm here to tell you, you got another thing coming. And if you think that what I am saying is Dr. Newton's rambling because she's paranoid and has developed schizophrenia from working with so many patients, let me give you a quote from the United States Military War Review. Innate differences in vulnerability to chemical agents between different populations have led to the possible development of what? Let me tell y'all something. This is a black woman. And in America, this is call and response. Y'all don't sit there and don't answer me. If I say what, you give me a response. This is what black people do. Not the way the UK trained you, but this is what we do from our nature. Okay? So let's get back to who we are. Innate differences in vulnerability to chemical agents between different populations have led to the possible development of what? Oh, you sound like people to me. Okay. Widely different opinions have been ventured as to the type of chemical operations likely to be directed against military personnel and the civilian population in a future war. There have been some recent tendencies to stress the wide latitude between incapacitating and the lethal action of BZ-type agents. BZ is a term for biological-type warfare agents. Friendly troops, listen now, could use them to dampen belligerence. I'm circling around. I want you to follow this African concentric logic as we move into the era of violence. To dampen belligerence, they effectively slow down physical and mental activity, make the poison personnel giddy, disoriented, and more or less unable or unwilling to carry out commands by gentle persuasion. Aided by psychochemicals, civilians in enemy cities has yet to be defined, okay, can be re-educated. The adversary would use incapacitants to spare those who he could use as what? To spare those who he could use as what? Thank you. What am I saying? What am I saying? I'm saying that black and brown people are the subject of human experimentation, are the subject of the potentiality of you now being determined as an enemy. Why do you think these new apartment buildings that I saw going up, is it Marseille, that look like prisons? Is that where it is? That they're going around? I said, oh my God, look like some of the jails in America. Why is that happening? To contain you in a space, to make sure that you don't get out of that space, and to create within the media the psychological climate to make that morally and socially acceptable. Even you, some of you who don't live in there. Yes, get them niggas out of the way. Yes, niggas, that's what you call them. Yes. Oh, we don't use that term in the UK. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? I read something about a police report in Bristol where they was nigger hunting back 10 years ago. Y'all don't use that word? Huh. Y'all better wake up. And so your images get distorted, and your leaders who talk about the truth, whether you agree with them 100% or not, are considered to be terrorists. That's the most horrible. Rosalind, you talked about it the other day. That's the most horrible picture of Louis Farrakhan I've ever seen. But it's the ministry of rage. I want to know where's the ministry of rage that's killing my children with the drugs that they bring into the community. Because 3/4 of the people who are of color do not manufacture those drugs. And they are taking all the risk. So I want to know, if we're talking about healing, why we're not standing up, dealing with the issues instead of dealing with the effects, looking at the true cause. Our ancient Kemites said that these are called sick people. They are the diseased ones. And the diseased ones have a tendency to not want to claim who they are. Classic example. Now, I happen to think from a behavioral standpoint, dispensing with the fact that this is a sad issue, from a behavioral standpoint, he is the most accurate reflection of the psychological climate and the psychological well-being of the African psyche that I've ever seen. Because he has shown and epitomized in hard fact what you think. But you just don't have the guts to do it. You want to be white, but you don't have the guts to do what Michael did. Instead, you try to change it and suppress these ways on your children, making them stand up straight. Do you know black children can learn by sitting still? Does that make them genetically inferior? Of course not. They learn by movement. They learn by giving them something to do and interacting with them because their melanin centers, everybody's got melanin. Unlike what Time Magazine said that I said up front, everybody has melanin. That's a logical sense. If white people come from black people, don't they have to have melanin? Get real. Get real. There's a true brotherhood and sisterhood that nobody wants to claim. Because if they have to claim it, they have to own up that the Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And then one would have to come and attune to and bow down to and kiss the ground to the very people you hold contempt for. Oh, my goodness, transformation. Okay, so as we deal with Michael, who represents the epitome of what happens to us when we lose our consciousness, let's look at what now is happening to us as we become more technological. And I'm going to talk about what we're going to do, and I hope I can do it in time. Don't kick me out, Paul. Okay? You see this issue of time? The new face of America. Take a good look at this woman. She was created by a computer from a mix of several races. What you see is a remarkable preview of the new face of America. This is a computer program for Macintosh called Morphology 2. It's the same program that Michael Jackson used in his video for Black or White. And what they did simply was to take different so-called ethnic groups, Korean, Chinese, Indian, African, and they mixed them, the women on one grid and the men on another, with a computer to show you what the children would look like. Now, you say, well, this doesn't have anything to do with me. Oh, yes, it does. Because in the UK, everybody is mixed up, just like they are all over the world, because the European man implanted his sperm a lot of places. And so as a result of that, there is a mixing of the genetic pool at some level. But what is going on in the biological field is that people are going back and looking and relooking at the ancient genetic codes of our people. We call that grave robbing where I come from. Y'all call that historical progress, but I call it grave robbing. And so that the evolutionary changes that they taunted Shakanta Diop for saying that the melanin skin test, that the mummies and all that stuff was not true, in private circles, behind closed doors, not made public, but yes public. Because you see, if you want to hide something from people, you know what you do with it? You put it in their face. They walk right past it. They never see it. The military is part of their CIA operations where they want to plant spies, some of which may be in this room. It's okay, because whatever I say, I can be quoted and back it up. But what they do is they put it right there in your face, and then you just walk right around and get used to it, don't even think. You know, in America, when they want to catch drug addicts, they have the teams, the undercover agents go and become the drug suppliers, become the drug dealers. And therefore, you know, they get a little cadre of people going for a while, and then they, boom, oops, there it is. You know, then they, so what we do. Now, I was browsing through one of these undercover bookstores that I don't like to tell people I do go in from time to time, and came across this. Now, if I just looked at this as a casual observer, I would say, oh, they just artificial life, and they got some sister looking like she like in a mummified position. That's not what this means at all. And the symbolism of the images that they've talked about before, we've got to talk about now the decoding process. And in decoding, I'm going to get to some answers. Look at this. Let's go through this. This is meduneta. This is dealing with some issues of life. This is melanin, the chemical structure of melanin. This is DNA, the double helix of DNA. This is electromagnetic field energy. What are we doing here? We are given the code of life, and if we're going to create artificial life, we got to start with the first one. You got it? They got to go through these dynamics, coming up black, and then creating further. Y'all with me? I hope you are. Because this is serious stuff here. This is not nothing to play with. Y'all come to this conference to sit here, to go home, and then, oh, you know, at the wonderful conference, we learned a lot, you know, a lot of pictures and nice people, networking. Did a lot of networking. But you don't understand the codes, because the codes in this symbolism is now in front of your face. You are being told some things. You are being told that while we're planning your demise, we also are going to now substitute life forms so that you will become dispensable. Your children have no place in the future because you have not made one. You have no agenda for their survival as a nation of people. I'm talking about a black nation. You have never made a plan. There's no plan throughout the diaspora. We're so busy trying to survive, eking out a living, just trying to pay the bills, that we've never sit down like they've sit down. And they don't include too many white women in that planet either, let me tell you. Okay, it's a lily white boys club. And they make it very clear that because you see, let me tell you what's happening. Let me tell you what's happening to white women in this scheme. As the world gets ready to deal with the ozone layer, there is a need to have more melanized people be in the environment. Now, the way that's getting ready to take place, not only is the cloning issue an issue, but that's not what we're going to deal with. There is now a new surgeon, and it started about 10 years ago. I was talking about 10 years ago in the high fashion magazines. Black women pitted with white men in the high fashion, Elle and Mademoiselle and Vogue and all that, sending out subliminal messages that mating with the black female will ensure that there will be a clone of people that are still pledging to the white man but have enough melanin to survive the ozone layer. Y'all don't have to like what I'm saying. I don't care. Because you're sitting here in all your security and getting all your education and you don't know nothing. You don't know that it's being planned and designed to eliminate you black men, and you black women can, you know, white women can come across. But there's a new magazine in California that's designed, and the name, and they had an article in November called The Ozone Baby. The Ozone Baby. I tried to get a copy of it to make an overhead before I came, but I didn't have time. I want to bring it back, The Ozone Baby, because that's the deal here. Because the world still has to be dominated by white men. And not every white man, just a few. Because the bulk of the white men, they've been duped and bamboozled just like you have. It's only in the hands of a few. And that few will maintain the power balance. The brother from Uganda hit on it yesterday. There's few that run the Trilateral Commission, the few that run the World Bank, the few that run the IMF, the few that coordinate the destruction of and the ability for toxic waste to be dispensed and dumped in Africa, the few that guarantee that there is strangulation in the funding so that African countries cannot survive, the few that root out and deal with and bribe pitiful African leaders who that can be used as a cannon fodder for the rest of you. That's it. The media is telling you what they're doing. Not only are they putting the negative images up there, they're telling you the plan. And you don't know what to do about it because you don't know how to decode it. And you don't know how to decode it because you don't know your history. Now here, take a look at the answers. Yeah, y'all, am I fired up? I'm ticked because every time I have to deal with this over and over and over again, it makes me sick. It makes me sick that we're so stupid with all our degrees. And I got plenty of them. I know. And so let's look at the code and the symbol. The first order for our resurrection is the balance of the material with the spiritual. First things first. Your ancestors gave it to you. Both the symbols and all the symbols in Meduneta and in all the symbols of our writings have both exoteric and esoteric meaning. You know, we very complicated folks. We do a lot of stuff, you know. And so we don't have doesn't just mean one thing. Here, this is a symbol of the god Api tying together the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt. That's what you're taught. Breathing life into the trachea. That's what you're taught. Here the fish for the symbol of regeneration. But here's the papyrus and the lotus flower, symbolizing the plant of Upper and Lower Egypt. That's part of what that means. The other part of what that means is that in order for a people to have life, they must balance and regenerate material and spiritual essences. We in this technological world are overly supplied in the materiality and lacking the spiritual consciousness. So that when we do this cloning of these people, what are we making? We're not making humans, because they can't have the essence of God coming from a test tube. It can't be. It doesn't happen. And so that if you want, and then as all people, we're going to get up on the spirit. We're really not spiritual, we're religious. There's a difference. We're very, very religious. And we don't talk to you if you are Muslim and I'm a Christian, or you a Krishna and I'm a nun fa nun. We don't talk to you because we have been conditioned to understand that something is wrong with you. That's part of the code. So here, what is the deal? You get so spiritual that you forget about protecting your borders. Akhenaten is a classic example. Got so preoccupied with God, he forgot to take care of the land. His mama, Queen T, had to come on and say, boy, let me snatch you up out of here and get real. You better do your job, because it's important that we understand that in the concept of our religion and in the concept of our spirituality is the concept of Mat. And the concept of Mat that is the most important is balance and reciprocity. You do me, I'm going to do you back with the grace of God. With the grace of God. Because if God gives you something in African people, he gave us the world. And you don't take care of it, you're supposed to have it taken, snatched, knocked in the head, and never gotten again. You are the people, you know, who the Bible speaks of. You are the people of bondage. You are the ones who've been in bondage for over 400 years. No other people on this earth has held it that long. And you are about to be given an opportunity for the last time. For the last time to get it right. And you don't want the responsibility. You keep calling on all these dead people. You call on Jesus. You call on Malcolm. You call on Martin because they're dead. And they can't come back and do nothing. Can't snatch you up and say, what you doing for my children? You forget that God lives inside of you and that you are the Jesus and the Malcolm and the Martin and the Jehovah's and all of that. And it's a disgrace if you don't know it. And it's a disgrace that your children don't know it. And that's why they hold you in contempt. And that rebellion that you see is their animosity over your impotence. Over your impotence. And they are appropriately angry. They are righteously indignated. But you don't know. We see because we have no foundation for them. We have no foundation for them. Therefore, they go and get into trouble. They go and do things that make the stereotype true. They do all of those things because we have refused to accept the responsibility that we are the heirs to this world. And as such, it is through our salvation that everyone will be saved, including our oppressor. You see, the prophecy says, and in the end there will come one born of a woman of Nubia who will be the Savior of the world. And in doing that, we will never treat the European the way they treated us. It is not in our nature. God didn't make us that way. And so the justice and the balance and the compassion, but this time around when you open the door and you ask them to come in and you have them to sit down for dinner, you make sure the club don't come with them to knock you in the head, to rape your woman, and to take your land. And so that in the process of dealing with this, we have to deal with, is it okay? Everybody all right? Ain't nobody offended? Everybody having a good time? Good. Carry on. Okay. How much time do I have? I'll get through. So that in the process of dealing with this, we have to come to understand that there are things we can do. The first thing that we do is we have to make a pact between God and ourselves. That's the first pact. The first pact is to say, God, you live in me. I am the accurate reflection of you in human form. The Godhead resides in me, not up there in no sky. Looking at it here and here and here and here and here. The fact that you choose to be an ass, that you choose to be devilish, is your choice, because God, unfortunately, gave us free will too. Because we were supposed to be gods and exercise it appropriately. And we didn't. We became confused. And we began to want to personify ourselves in images that were unholy. But that's not the reality. You know, God is forgiving. And the Creator in all our spirituality understands that in human form we make a great deal of mistakes. And so that the process of wisdom is acquired by doing, not necessarily by being. So as long as we are moving in the process of resurrection of our African selves, we might make it. We just might make it. Our children are sending us a message, and they're sending us a warning that if you don't get it right, we're going to take you out of here. Am I lying? They're going to take you out. And then you see, the sad reality will be that we can't claim a case for genocide. We can't claim a case for anybody doing us in, because it will be our own kind that does us in. That's a very, so, you know, if racism wasn't being dealt so hard on my people, as a behaviorist, it's a wonderful sociological experiment. When you can create something that will run on its own for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, where you make people want to have their butts kicked. That's a wonderful sociological experiment. If it just wasn't such a travesty, if it wasn't so sad and it wasn't my people, the original people that are being done in, it's a wonderful educational tool to look at for how to control the masses of human flesh. But there's one thing. You're supposed to be dead, and you're not. You're still here. You're still operating, so something else inside of you lives. May I have the first slide? I'm going to try to get through on time. I'll do my best, brother. Next, may I have the, do I turn it on up here? All right. Is that it? Can I have all the lights out? All the lights out. They've been in the dark so long, another day ain't gonna matter. Just ain't gonna matter. Okay. You sure got bold nerve. I don't know how to tell you, it's deep. Every light out. Because I want to go through this. And what am I getting ready to go through? I'm getting ready to showing you what we've done with the dregs of society as a lesson for what you can do for yourself. I'm talking about drug addict. Because you see, chemical dependency is the last stand of control. And chemical dependency is not just with illegal drugs. No. What about all this legal crap you put inside of you? The Mickey D's, the KFCs, all this stuff. KFC's is Kentucky Fried. Mickey D's is McDonald's. All of these things that you use, these chemicals that are added to your foods as preservatives, the question really becomes is to whether or not these items that are now legal have some way of altering forever the chemical makeup that's kept your black behind here in spite of all that destruction that should have taken you out. But what do we do in our impotency? We leave it to the Lord. Well, let me tell you what the Lord says. God helps those who what? Helps themselves. Yes. And since you ain't helping yourself, I don't know what's going to happen. It won't be for me to decide. Let's talk about this thing. Is that backwards? I think. Focus, focus. Can I focus up here? Where does it focus at, y'all? Oh, here, I got it, I think. Is that working? Oh, man. Sabotage 101. Let's see if I can, what about this one? That's okay, it doesn't have to. I can keep rolling. No time to waste time. This is the issues of a sunrise and a sunset. And why am I saying this? Because in sunrise, it won't work. I tried. Okay. Because when we're dealing with sunrise, we're dealing with the production of serotonin in the brain. Now, I'm getting ready to get into trouble now. I see it now coming. But serotonin is involved with these certain functions, and it's involved in sunrise. In sunset, we have the system that involves melatonin. Now, this is critical because part of the reason you ain't dead yet has to do with the fact that this substance has yet to be destroyed. But that time's coming close, real close. And in the process of this, we have to look at what happens when melatonin is destroyed. Melanin is destroyed. You don't have to read it. I'll tell you what's on it. It is irrelevant anyway, in terms of you reading it. Almost all your body functions. That's all you need to know from screwing to thinking. That's enough. Including your immune system is related to melatonin production. So if it ain't working, it ain't working, okay? And it's not working properly, so perhaps what you could be creating is some things that have to do with natures that we don't know anything about. But what do our African ancestors teach us? They teach us that we have an affinity with that melatonin, and I'll show you later a chemical structure to show you why, with certain metals and certain colors and certain kinds of smells and certain kinds of sounds that are healing in and of themselves. So you're not just wearing gold and silver because it's pretty. You better understand what you're wearing it for, and you better understand if somebody makes some stuff for you, what they could be doing to you. Ooh, she talking witchcraft up here. This stuff is not scientific. Want to bet? And so that different incenses create, you don't just incense for purification, but incense can create certain environmental factors in the body. Your ancestors knew that. They knew that certain kinds of ancestors were better on certain kinds of days. Some cause energy to move forward, some cause energy to move backwards. That means expand or contract. You don't have time to write this down. Go out and buy Africa Holistic Health. The brother got it in there. And I'm not going to go through all of this. These are also stones. These are also the issue with metals. But also we know, largely through the Chinese perfection of African wisdom, that there are body cycles, and that these cycles operate at different times of the day. And at these times of the day, one can be most easily influenced and open up at different levels. Let me tell y'all something. When one gets ready to work, you know, there's a thin line between spiritual healing and sorcery. Did you know that? A very thin line. And the thin line has to do with the conduit, the healer, that comes through and provides the energy. You're going to some situations where you are dealing and even sleeping with people whose energies are to your demise. Now, I'm not trying to get in your bedroom. I got enough problems of my own. But let me say this. When you wake up, you might have to look over and decide, can't touch that. Because some of what you're going to pick up is going to be some body cycles that don't have nothing to do about healing. Above the waist energy in the morning, below the waist energy at night, except for early in the morning. Early in the morning, between 2 and 4 a.m., y'all supposed to be asleep, black people. That's when your melatonin is at its peak surge. And as soon as it starts to come down, if you wake up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, you notice then that that's when you're most spiritual, most creative. Did you ever wonder why? It just happened because you wanted for, right? Is that it? Okay. Well, there is a biological reason for it. And that's because when the melatonin goes down, it's still at a high concentration in the body, it opens you up to receive the spiritual energy from the creative Godhead, to receive information. It's also when the brothers rise like raw the best time. So if you're having trouble, girls, as we say at home, sister girl, if you're having a problem, you know what to do and when. Provided you didn't eat no pork and you didn't eat a whole bunch of alcohol that caused it to not even get a crook in the morning. We talking about preservation of life. We got to talk about every aspect. Let the people with that puritanical ethic confuse you. Now, this is melanin. Now, see those things out there? Those are arms. Those are known in chemistry as free radicals. The thing about free radicals, and if any of you have read Carol Barnes' book, if you haven't, take a look at it. It's a good section in there on the toxic effects of drugs on melanated human minds, that this free radical is non-discriminatory. Non-discriminatory. Meaning just take in anything and everything. Just peel it out and put it back. Just take it on in. That's why you love everybody, despite yourself. You know we have to be a kind people. People kicked us in the head, enslaved us, and we still love them. We still love them. You know, and ain't nothing nobody can say to make you hate folk. Because if after 500 years and 5,000 years what people have done to you hasn't made you hate them, you're not going to hate them. And I'm not saying that you should. I'm simply saying that you got to understand that sometimes your biggest, as Dr. Clark says, your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness, because you don't exact the price for that love. Unconditional love is wonderful when it's being reciprocated. But when it's not being reciprocated, it better come with strings. And they better be twined real tight. And so this thing will pick up good and bad. It's non-discriminatory. And so there are some things in your environment that help destroy your melanin. All that coffee and all that tea with caffeine. Woo. Some of these drugs, you don't have to read them. We'll get into them later in the workshop. But look at this. This is important. The structure of melanin, all you have to know is just look at the benzene rings. You don't have to worry about seeing all of that. I just want the image to be in your head. They all look alike. These are serotonin, melatonin, mescaline, all these drugs. Drugs look like what's already in your body. You got it? And so that look at this. Cocaine, marijuana, all LSD, all got the benzene ring. Now, I was misquoted, and I was said that I said black people were more were more vulnerable, were more susceptible to drug addiction. That's not what I said. I'll tell you exactly what I said. Because of the chemistry, the greater amount of melanin centers in your body, skin has nothing to do with it. Skin is only one organ. Melanin is every organ system in the body. Skin just happens to be the largest organ. Some people got more whooping their melanin cells to death in their skin, others don't. But melanin centers exist in every organ system in the body and also in the brain. Okay? Now, these chemical structures are very similar to the drugs. Your body comes in. It misreads. The melanin misreads the cocaine and thinks it is serotonin, thinks it is adrenaline, and it binds like wax to the floor. So that when they're bringing these drugs in, remember when we talked about ethnic-specific weapons? You got more stuff able to bind to more melanin, and you got more melanin centers throughout your body. What is the direct proportion to the number of available sites to the potential of harm? In other words, what am I saying? That there is a higher vulnerability to the effects of the drugs, not to addiction, but to the effects. In other words, to what it will do to you, okay? And so it comes in and forms this polymer like wax to the floor. And then stress comes along. All you got to do is keep living in the world if you're black. Stress will come along and breaks that bond. And when that bond breaks, that cocaine is back into the circulation. Now drug testing has been instituted in America, and then maybe here too on the work site. Guess what? The drug test is a melanin-based reagent. So you might end up positive because you're just black. But don't count on it. Because if you end up positive, more than likely it's because you did have some drugs at point X. It may not have been yesterday. It may not have been last week. But with cocaine, it can stay bound in your body in that form for an extended period of time, up to 6 months. Then that polymer gets released, thrown out into the circulation, and boom, there it is, all over again. And you will then have the profound effect of not only having a dirty urine, but you may also have a flashback or a sustained high, but more importantly, you may have a myocardial infarction or a cardiac attack that's really a cocaine attack. That makes you vulnerable. And as a result of that, what did I do? Now, in talking about my patients as we come to the end, I'm almost done, I'm going to be telling you what to do, because you can't do anything with the media. You can't do anything with anybody if you are sick, if your brain is destroyed, and if your body is dysfunctional. Are you with me? Because you can't. Now, so what did we do? We took the dregs of society. You know, drug addicts are the dregs of society. We took them. You know, bring me your tide, your poor, everybody, okay? And so we put them in 3 groups. And in the first group, this is what we gave them: relapse prevention therapy, acupuncture. Nutritional therapy means that we did our best to move them to vegetarianism. But if we couldn't get them all away, we at least took them off all processed foods, off all red meats, you know, because that's critical, because the nitrites and nitrates that are in those meats to preserve those meats are also the highest known carcinogenic agents for all people. Doesn't matter what your color is, because there ain't but one race, no way. The human race, all derivatives from one black woman. So, you know, this is just variations of the thing. Different ethnic groups, but one race. Make it clear. Stop using white race, black race. There's only one biologically. My goodness. Just turn up everything. So anyway, and exercise. Now, I got in trouble with the exercise. I started talking about movement and how movement is important in healing. Well, you all know when you hear that drum, you know you move. And you know you feel a rhythm. And that rhythm is a healing rhythm. And I will say it, and I will say it, and I will say it, and I don't care how many times they misquote me. I'm going to say it again. There are certain activities that the body conducts that will increase endorphin production, increase enkephalin production. These are natural opiates in the body, in the brain, that cause a sense of well-being, and that is stimulated by melatonin production. So that when that's increased, you pound your feet, you hear that drum, that bass rhythm, makes you feel good because it's in your nature. And because, I don't care what they say,
And so that when you want to talk about healing our people and talk about teaching our children, you got to move them. They'll remember anything you put in motion. They will remember it. Anything you put in motion and you back it with sound, they will remember. And you back it with sound and color and smell, they got it for life. Catholic Church says, give me your child before the age of 8 and he's mine for life. And what I'm saying to you, you better give your child to yourself before the age of out of the womb so he can be yours for life. And so what did we do? We looked at these patients. Group A, we had a total of 700 in Group A. Now, drugs of choice. Nobody is on one drug, okay? Most people, and y'all ain't on one drug. You either smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, or eating grease. Okay? One or the other. Okay. And then Group B got everything but the acupuncture. Group C is a control. Control group we use for people who are already drug addicted so that there would be an appropriate control. You know, we got to keep the statistics right. You know, we do have to satisfy European standards, you know. And so, of research. Okay. And so we had 700 people in one group, 600 in another. But the important thing was look at the mean length of drug addiction. We're talking about chronic patients here. We're talking about everybody else's treatment failures, everybody else's rejects, everybody else's, ain't nothing we can do to them but lock them up. And we use acupuncture. And why do we use acupuncture? We use acupuncture because acupuncture is a method. By the way, acupuncture did not originate in China. It originated in Africa. The Chinese perfected it. And the Yellow Emperor of China, who wrote the first book of acupuncture, gives homage and credit to the ancient Kemites, ancient Egyptians, for having created it. And as a matter of fact, it was used in ancient times during the lunar cult in the temples for women as a birth control mechanism. Ooh-wee. Anyway, so what do? We use these at certain points or detox points. And we use those points because not only do they increase electromagnetic flow that cause endorphin release, they also increase the rate at which clearance occurs through the kidneys. That means the rate at which the drug gets flushed out of the body. And then we use sociodrama. Now, what is sociodrama? Not psychodrama. We superimpose a person's life, reality, upon the cultural context in which they find themselves. And so if they were raped while they were high, or they were done in or arrested, then we put that in the form of an action item. We put it so that it can come out, so that catharsis can be reached and the person can come to terms with all of that stuff. Because we got a lot of stuff that's happened to us. We may not be drug addicts, per se, illegal drugs anyway, but we have stuff inside of us. And that stuff inside of us needs to come out and break us free. That same stuff is that stuff that also makes us deny who we are. So that stuff's got to be cleaned up. And then we use rational behavior therapy. We use a model of ABCs of emotions, attitudes, beliefs, and the consequences of attitudes, beliefs. If you think drugs makes you feel better, then it's logical to get high. It's not rational because rationally it'll kill you. But if you think it'll make you feel better, you do it. That's logical. And so we go in and create negative imagery. We create relaxation because you know what? You don't have to be a drug addict to need to have visual imagery, to need to have rational behavior therapy. You know why? Because you spend all your time getting upset over minutia. I'm not lying. 3/4 of the conversations you have are about nothing. I know it's true even in the UK, just like in America. Go back before you came to this conference, of course, and check out the content of the conversations you had. Just go back the day before. I bet 80% of it was garbage. And then you got upset over more garbage. And you know, and rational insight number 1 says most of what most people say is not worth knowing. And then you're going to get upset over something not worth knowing. Blood pressure get elevated, heart rate rise. I mean, it's crazy. Get an attitude. It's not rational. It don't even make you feel better. I don't even know why you do it. And visual imagery. What do our images need to be? Our images need to be visualizing our goals. Every morning before you get up out of that bed, you need to meet your Creator and first give thanks, and second, Secondly, plan your day, plan your week, plan your year, plan your next millennium. And you need to do that with your children. And you need to learn how to relax. We work all the time. We don't have no money to show for it. We just work. But we don't relax. The things that we do to relax, like getting high and all that stuff, doesn't help us relax. But we need to learn how to be at peace. Sometimes listen to the quietness of the voices inside of you and inside the universe. We use history to help self-esteem. I've never met an addict that had good self-esteem. I've never met an addict that loved themselves. I've never met most black people that love themselves until they get educated and liberated. And so we put the same things in therapy that you need to put into your life. And then we looked at the phases of treatment. Everybody gets well in acute detox. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in down here. How long do they stay well? How long do they stay free from the vestiges of enslavement at the mental level? And then we begin to, yes, brainwash them. You darn right. Wouldn't you rather have me brainwash them than them rip you off? And we brainwash them. And we went back to ancient Kemetic thought before there was religion, so that we don't get into no problems with you being Muslim or Christian or whatever. And before there was races, so we didn't get in no problems with it being black or white, okay? And we went back to some of the ancient philosophies, and we began with them and their families to program them. Do not hurl a lance if you cannot aim it correctly. That means stop throwing garbage at folk, and stop signifying if you can't back it up. Do not do evil to a person and thus cause it to be done to you. That's reciprocity, ma'at. Let your generosity reach one who needs it. Stop giving gifts to people who don't need it, just so you can get your name in the paper. Do not be stingy, for wealth, listen, is no real security. Speak truth to everyone. Let it cling to your speech. Do not do to a person what you dislike and thus cause another to do it to you also. There is no good deed except the deed that is done for one who needs it. Those who struggle with the people in their town will rejoice in the victory with them. These are the kind of insights that we all need. Examine every matter that you may understand it. Do not say, I am learned, but rather set yourself to become wise. Be gentle and patient, then your character will be beautiful. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. Learn the structure and functioning of the sky. Learn the structure and functioning of the moon. We learn these from the papyrus of Ani, the papyrus, all these different papyrus. Do not speak falsely to anyone, for it is an abomination of God. Stop lying, y'all. Do not separate your heart from your tongue, and all your plans will be successful. You will have the weight in the presence of others and be secure in the hands of God. God hates one who falsifies words, and the great abomination to God is deception and double dealing. That's what we learned from the European psychology. The abomination of God. And don't you think for 1 minute that God's not going to serve you up. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I am going to go through this. And then we talk about resurrection of the soul. Yes, in therapy. Yes, yes. We talk about resurrection of the soul. Learning to control your lower nature, as Brother Tony talked about today. Rising up. I'm almost done. Learning then to relate to women on a complementary basis, so that there can be an understanding that you cannot have balance. The ancient Africans said there were two major principles. Not only the balance of the material with the spiritual, but the masculine and the feminine principles. One is out of sync, the nation dies. Don't want to deal with that. I want to deal with this. And I'm almost done. I want to talk about results. That's what counts. At the end of 5 years, we had we look at the results on the measure of success as the frequency of relapse. So if the relapse rate is lower, the success is higher. You're with me? If the relapse rate is higher, the success is poorer. 5 years. 2% of 700 patients have relapsed. Best statistics in the world, barring none. without acupuncture, 5%. That means that we got 700 people, only 2% of them went back to doing drugs. Now, why did that happen? Why did that happen? That happened not only because we replaced certain images and we gave them certain lifestyle, but you know what else that did? Let me give you the biological basis for what it happens. And I don't care what press writes it. Any way they want to write it, I'm going to call it the way it is. Melanin is a wonderful organism. We just now got to the point where we could bombard it. But you know what happens to it if you let it rest just a little bit? It recombinates itself because it's so polymorphous. And it redoes its nature and it becomes more resistant. And so the reason these people are able to stay clean is because their melanin centers now have scripted a new code that makes them more resistant psychologically, physiologically, and spiritually to relapse. And that's what the message is, and that's why nobody wants you to have it. Nobody wants you to have it because they know if you give yourself time to heal, time to put these things in place, not because they're religiously right, because they are life-sustaining, you will bounce back and your children will come here ready to do battle for the battle that is surely to come. Because it's here. And we're not capable. We don't have the strength. We're tired. It's got to be the children. And we got to rise them up to get them ready. And in order to do that battle, they got to be righteously ready at every level. This is what this means. This is why people don't want you to have this information. They don't want you to know that once you know this, though, hey, once you know this, you see, you have no more excuses. You can't say, I didn't know. I'm so sorry, but you see, nobody told me this in school, you know, and I didn't learn it. And so now you cannot be relieved of your obligation, and so that when you come to judgment, when you come before, and you must give account and atonement for what you have done on this earth, you won't be able to make an excuse, you see. Your heart's going to be balanced against the feather of truth, the ostrich feather that is able, because the ostrich neck is the only animal that can rotate 360 degrees. You won't be burying your head in the sand, but you will be rotating, and you will be asked to give an account for the justice and the injustice, for the righteousness and the debauchery that you allowed to participate, because you people are the last generation that will be given permission to have the luxury of buffoonery, because your children are going to die. And if they don't die, they will kill you, because you made a place for them that was unsafe, unhealthy, where they were not wanted. And for that, you will be wiped off this earth. And according to the laws of universal order, it is as it should be if you do not do that. You don't have to like what I'm saying, but it is what it is. And so in the process of coming to the end, in the process of leaving you with something that will elevate you for healing, I have decided that if you look at these things for what I'm saying about transforming mind, body, and spirit, take them out of the context of drug addiction and incorporate them into your life, then you will begin the first level of freeing your mind, so your bad black behind will follow. And in doing that, it's unfair if I don't offer you something. So what I have done is decided to ask you to sit back, don't go to sleep on me, relax, close your eyes, and let us take you through this transformation that we're going to do with the music. And the music was done by Brother Phil Coran. Brother Phil Coran is an astronomer and a melanin scholar in music. And we're going to talk about, I just want you to keep your eyes fixated on the screen. I want you the brothers to start the tape, and I'm going to take you through and read some healing passages as I want you to astro travel with me through time. Can I have the music, please? All the way up. God has given me protection because I am the one from whom God wants. Therefore, he keeps me alive. I who come from out of the wounds of Africa into this plain, know that you, O God, can make the wings of time strike faster. You inhabitant of all the secrets of life, you guard all the words I say. See, you are ashamed of me, your son. Your heart is full of sorrow because my sins are heavy on this world. Oh, make peace with me. Make peace and remove all the divisions that depart us. Let all my sins be washed away, so that you and they can make me right. Have my sins fall on the left. Have them fall on the right. Remove all of my badness. Remove the mud that fills my heart, so we can have peace in the future. Protect me and keep me safe. Keep every part of my being in its proper place. You guide and protect me. My hair is protected by none. My spirit is Ra. My eyes are Hathor. My ears are Uput. My lips are Ananbu. My neck is the goddess Isis. My arms are Ba. My breast is Neth. My back is Seth. My penis is Osiris. My body and my spinal column are Sekhmet. My foot is Ptah. No part of my being is without God. Da Jahuti is the protector of my whole body. Come forth into the new world. Allow me to be at peace, so that the children that spring from my loin carry the essence and blessings of your being. Keep them safe. Keep the spirit from this generation to the one yet unborn, from that generation to mine. One continuum in the heavens. I came from beyond, close to you, O God, and to you I will return. As I live on this earth, make my life be that which is at peace, that which is a blessing and an adoration. I will protect my child. Each morning when you rise, Ra, I will keep my child and not give my child up. My hand lies on the seal, God, of your protection. Place from where you come to this time. The Creator is always with us, from antiquity to now. It is our responsibility to keep the peace, to be one with the heavens, to understand yourself to breathe deeply and relax. You are one with God wherever you go. Resides in each and every one of us. It is our duty as we breathe the air on this earth to manifest that glory. In so doing, we offer life to the next generation and beyond. This is important. As we say, we can no longer be ashamed of who we are. We cannot worry about what our people think, because as Grandma says, you're the one burning up in the oven. You're the one gotta put out the fire. I thank you. May Amen be satisfied. Peace be with you. You got tears of joy.
God, that was so good. Look, in order to do final justice in a way, I'm going to have to do what I don't like to do. Namely, to take a number of brief questions and then to move you all straight into the workshops. I'm sorry I have to do it like that, but I think that what happened here needed to be done, and it was done beautifully. Okay? So, can we take some questions rather than statements? In a sense, we've made the statement by the feeling and what we wanted to exchange. Any questions, very briefly? Right at the back, I see a hand. If I don't see us growing blind. Quickly, sir. Okay.
One. Right, okay. Statement, absolutely fantastic, out of this world. Exactly the person I'm looking for. Right? Right.
Question, sir.
Right. As you know, I'm a drummer, right?
Yes.
And one of the things you talked about, I think is important for people to have an understanding of the power of the music and dance,
That's right.
which I think, for me, a lot of people haven't got the understanding. I want to know, have you got any programs to actually put forward, actually in education, which is my field, yeah, to implement for black children?
Thanks.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we're working with the children of addicted parents, and we're using drumming as a process of healing. And we have young master drummers that are coming up through that tradition, but also the certain rhythmic patterns of the drums that allow for certain kinds of informational input to be delivered. And so what we do is use that as a process for imprinting. Yes, we do in our treatment program. But it's now developing into a program with the Sankofa Dance Theater in Baltimore and the Baltimore Comedic Study Group. And we're going to be reporting on the research of that in about 5 years.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I need your address afterwards.
Thanks so much. Can I take the brother who just stood up? The one behind you, sir. Okay. If you come quickly. Right on, brother. Okay, thanks.
These are tears of joy.
Okay.
That's where it's coming from deep. Inside a release, you know, every time I give a healing, I get a healing. And so that's where it comes from.
Thanks. That's enough. You, sir, quickly, if you speak up from where you are, because we're running out of time. Oh, I think you're doing good.
What do you think of an education system that was designed by the Europeans for Europeans, where black people go and spend 27 years trying to acquire European education and not producing food or building houses or building up their country?
Thank you.
Do you think we should sacrifice that?
Thank you.
I'm going to do my best to attempt to deal with that in the workshop. I think that that system, as it is presently in existence, is a system that is detrimental to our children. I think it's important for our children, perhaps, to be involved in either independent schools or Saturday schools in the first few years, and then they will have to go at some point and learn marketplace technology. But I don't think the foundation should be in European schools. No, I don't.
Thanks. Brother over there.
With respect, I'm a Rasta man.
Right, Irene.
Right? The woman, right, was spiritual strength and understanding, the divine eye guidance gift, and guidance for other people. I think if we recognize the strength of the woman and her spiritual strength, that we will go far. As a man, as you did refer to the woman needing to close their legs, I will support you totally in that. Do not let me in unless I'm working.
That's right.
Boy, That's what you call sacrifice over there.
All right.
Go on.
Motivated and grateful. In fact, it's like a duel of the gospel today, resurrection day. And for such a dynamic approach to come through a depressed and a hungry people to let us know the dynamics of our being, I think it's wonderful. And just to ask a question since I stood up, I would like to know, do you have any videos that we could plug up that television? I think many of us would cut off eyewitness news if we had something like that.
Yes, we have videos, and Brother Tony Broader has lots of videos. We have all kinds of videos available for people. The data that you saw today is going to be a part of the book on African healing systems that will be out, and there will be a video that comes along with that. That should be available by the end of November of this year. It's in transformation, but we have other videos, okay?
Okay, okay, would you care, sister, just to ask your question, and then the very last one is you. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Microphone, please.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was rushing. If you'd rush there, sister, thanks.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
You mentioned a man born by a Nubian woman.
Yeah.
And that he has to come and do what?
No, it's to save the world.
Thank you. If I tell you that that man is here, will you believe it?
Oh, I wouldn't have no doubt that it's
Thank you.
manifest.
He is here. Thank you. That's
Okay.
why we are here.
Okay.
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 Every one of it.
Thank you. Can I take the last question from the gentleman next to the microphone?
Might be a stupid question after all this. Over in the last year or so, I've, kind of come to a black consciousness of myself, right? And
Amandla, freedom, alive, good.
So, question, like I said, it's from the heart. It's not, so some of the things you've said, right, are new to me. Like you says that the world came from one black woman, right? Okay, it's new. I have to sit down and digest
January 11, 1988, Newsweek magazine. You can find the reference.
Okay, right. If that's the case, I, as a black person, am seeking to find out where my roots are from and identify with it, right, and go back to it, and have some kind of affinity with it, right? Why is it that, what's your interpretation, why the European, right, since we all came back from this one Nubian woman, right, why would it that the European is seeking to destroy, right, what is also their origin also? I don't seek to go back and destroy mine.
Right.
Why would they do so? I don't...
Well, no. This question is a lot deeper than what it superficially appears to be. First of all, only a handful of Europeans know the facts, and that handful are the ones that control the world power. Most European people have no idea that through the analysis of mitochondrial DNA that their ancient ancestors were African. Or if they do, they believe that they have somehow evolved into a higher species. They don't understand that modern man, Homo sapiens sapien, himself and herself, is the last hurrah, and that they came from that. So most of them don't know that. And so the few that control the power have to keep the wedge between us, because if they see us all getting together, the masses of people who don't control this power, they will have no ability to nominate and to create confusion and to keep getting rich off of our ignorance. And so that same group of few leaders, primarily through the Committee of 300, the IMF, the Trilateral Commission, that's a whole nother discussion for me to come back in private circles and discuss the dynamics of what this really is. They could no longer rule the world. They keep the confusion to keep us competing with each other, so our energies get used up. and we are not available for the real battle and the real task. That's why. White people don't know this either.
Okay, beautiful. Now, at this point, before we come to give thanks again to Sister Newton, is to tell you about the workshops and where they are. Workshop E, Raising Heru, will be in the main hall. Workshop F, Promoting Excellence, will be in the Limes. Workshop G, Healing the Mind, will be in Tree Court. At this,
Who's actually doing those?
well, the workshops have got the people in them, and if I could be helped here, but we have Healing the Mind, that's yours,
Yes,
sister, and we have
Tony and his daughter are doing.
right, we have Tony and his daughter, Brother Browder, who will be raising Heru in the main hall, and Promoting Excellence will be, somebody shout it out for me. Carol? Carl George. And in terms of, what about the last one, 4? That's been cancelled. Okay, at this point, before the sister goes, can we give her again what she deserves?